At least 5 people have died in the raging wildfires around Los Angeles in California. Several fires are burning out of control, destroying hundreds of homes. These are live visuals. More than 100,000 people have been ordered to evacuate, and nearly 1 million homes and businesses in the country are without power. Fierce winds are hindering firefighting operations and fueling the fires. For more on these fires, I'm joined by Professor Stefan Doerr, Geography Professor and Director of the Center for Wildlife Research at Swansea University Prof. A very good afternoon to you. Thanks very much for your time. Do we know what is responsible for, or what could lie behind this phenomenon?
Well, we don't know at this point what the actual ignition was, but ignitions are common at any time of the year, really. It's just whether they develop into an extreme fire. And what we've seen in this particular fire, the combination of especially 2 things that made these fires very extreme. That is, on the one hand, those very strong Santa Ana winds that are not unusual this time of the year, but also extended drought conditions. You would normally expect here in the Californian winter for rain to have started and to dampen the vegetation, to make the vegetation moist. But the vegetation is still tinder dry after a very hot summer and a extremely dry autumn. So we're in drought. So that combination makes these fires extremely dangerous.
You're saying these high winds are not unusual this time of the year, but have things become progressively worse over the years, in other words, if we look at it over time?
Now, the Santa Ana winds, at least the latest research suggests, they haven't changed all that much. They occur every year. They can be very strong. But what we are certainly seeing is that we have an extension in the fire season. So, in fact, globally, we have an extension of the fire season of about 27% since the 1980s. That's across a global average. In California, the situation is worse. So that means the period in which we can expect fires to occur is, especially in this area, almost year-round, whereas beforehand, the fire season tended to disappear in October. So climate change has certainly extended the fire season and may well have contributed to this particular fire as well.
Can we say the same about the lack of rain and the drought?
Ultimately, yes. What we are seeing in this area of the world, but many other areas of the world, is that the meteorological phenomena are becoming more extreme. So we're often seeing more extreme rainfall in many areas, more extreme flooding, but also deeper and more extensive droughts. So the combination of both, on the one hand, can provide more fuel, better vegetation growth with extreme rainfall, and then you hit this area with a drought. That means more fuel is available, that becomes very dry, and this then fans the fires. So we certainly have an effect of climate change, making the whole landscape more prone to fire.
And how do people in this situation sort of protect themselves from the dire consequences? And I'm asking this because this kind of phenomenon is affecting us here in places like the Western Cape of our own country.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that both California and South Africa are amongst the most experienced countries in terms of actually dealing with fire, in terms of firefighting, in terms of evacuation, in terms of preparation for fire. But ultimately, especially this area in California now, is one of the most fire-prone regions of the world. It has shrubby vegetation, similar to what you have in parts of South Africa, especially around Cape Town. Very flammable vegetation, but also buildings in extremely flammable hill slopes where really they shouldn't have been built because the risk is very high. And if you do build those buildings, you certainly need to protect the properties, and that is by clearing the vegetation, building out of material that is not particularly flammable, and also having good evacuation plans. So in terms of evacuation, it seems to be working quite well. But in terms of protecting those buildings from going up in flames in the first place by removing the vegetation, clearing the shrub, and also building those buildings out of less flammable material, there is a lot that can be done. And it hasn't been done, basically.
It's a warming world, we hear, but how to make it colder?
Yes, that is the key question really here. And of course, we need to reduce our carbon emissions. Everybody knows that. We're not moving fast enough to do this. So, and climate change is just going to get worse. And we also know that globally, fire danger it's going to get worse nearly everywhere. So whilst we have to prevent climate change from getting much worse, we are locked into a situation where we know climate change will accelerate, at least for the time being. So, we have to mitigate against the consequences, but we also have to ensure that climate change is not getting worse. Now, in a strange twist, you could argue that, at least there in California at the moment, most of the buildings affected are likely to be insured to a high value, and the owners, whilst they're devastated by the loss of their buildings and their memories that are in those buildings, they can be rebuilt. There are many other places in the world where this is not the case. So I would say at least this area is relatively affluent, and rebuilding should not be a problem.
Prof, thank you very much for your time and insights. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.